This is AI Change Desk. Thank you for choosing to tune in. AI policy is where rollout momentum usually goes to die. Not because policy is bad, because policy is often written for legal completeness, not operational reality. Here's the point. Recent AI news only matters if it changes what your team does next week. So today we are going to do exactly that. Two current news signals, one policy lens, and a Monday morning execution plan. Context, impact, action. Story 1. Anthropic launched Claude Sonnet 4.6 on February 17, 2026. Now, whether you use Anthropic or not, this is still operationally relevant, because it is another reminder that model capability is changing on a faster cycle than policy review cycles. Most organizations review policy quarterly. Model behavior and product features are changing weekly. That creates a governance gap. If your policy says, quote, approved model list, end quote, but has no trigger for reevaluation, then your control exists on paper only. The model changes. Your team keeps shipping. Risk posture drifts. So the first takeaway from this news is not, wow, new model. The first takeaway is, your organization needs a model change protocol. Simple version. Anytime a core model is upgraded, your team runs a lightweight checkpoint. 3 questions. 1. Does this change any high-risk behavior for your use cases? For example, does it alter code generation quality, reasoning confidence, hallucination profile, or output style in a way that could affect customer communication or internal decisions? 2. Does this change any data handling assumptions? Teams often assume data behavior is static. It is not. Features, defaults, and integration patterns can shift. 3. Do we need to update our approved use examples and prohibited use examples? If not, your training material becomes stale, and frontline behavior follows stale examples. Notice what this does. It closes the gap between vendor release velocity and your control velocity. Now, story 2. Anthropic also announced it would cover electricity price increases linked to data center growth. Again, even if you are not their customer, this is a signal. AI is no longer only a software procurement discussion. It is now tied to infrastructure cost and local utility impact. That changes policy and procurement language. Most AI policies in organizations focus on privacy, security, and acceptable use. All good. But procurement policy often fails to capture infrastructure externalities and cost volatility. When a provider publicly addresses power cost impact, that should trigger a procurement control update on your side. At minimum, add 3 procurement questions. 1. What is the vendor's documented approach to infrastructure cost impact and regional pricing volatility? 2. If your workload scales, what cost changes are likely over 12 months? Do not accept hand-wavy answers. Get ranges and assumptions. 3. What transparency commitments exist when material infrastructure changes happen? If your team needs budget predictability, you need early warning, not surprise invoices. So those are the 2 headlines, model velocity and infrastructure economics. Now, let us convert both into policy that operators can actually run. Let us ground this with a practical frame. Scope, data, controls, accountability. Scope. Your policy must define allowed, restricted, and prohibited AI use. If every use case is labeled case by case, nothing is truly governed. A practical scope table can fit on 1 page. Allowed. Drafting internal summaries from non-sensitive content. Brainstorming first-pass outlines. Transforming public documentation into internal templates with human review. Restricted. Any use involving internal operational data, customer communications, or automation that can trigger external actions. Restricted means extra controls, not automatic denial. Prohibited. Unreviewed model output sent directly to customers in regulated or high-stakes workflows. Uploading protected or personal data into tools not explicitly approved for that data class. Autonomous decisions that affect people without human review. Data. This is where most rollouts leak. Map data classes to tool permissions.
Public, internal, sensitive, regulated. No ambiguity.
Public data can usually be used broadly with approved tools. Internal data might require approved vendors, logging, and role-based access. Sensitive or regulated data may require private deployment, contractual controls, or full prohibition depending on context. If you do not have this mapping, your team is relying on good intentions and memory. That is not governance. Controls. Do not create a 40 control framework nobody can operate. Pick the minimum effective controls. Control 1. Review points. Define when outputs need mandatory human review before being shared or acted on. Control 2. Exception process. Teams need a fast path to request temporary exceptions. If the process is slow, they will route around it. Control 3. Logging. You need enough telemetry to understand what tools are used, by whom, and at what risk tier. Not surveillance, operational visibility. Control 4. Incident escalation. If an AI-related incident happens, who is paged, what is documented, and what is paused? If this is unclear, incident response burns time and confusion. Accountability. Name owners, policy owner, training owner, exception owner, incident owner. When ownership is distributed without names, ownership does not exist. Now the change management piece. Because policy without adoption design is just an internal memo, you need 5 rollout assets. Asset 1. A one-paragraph manager message. Managers should be able to explain what changed and why in under 60 seconds. Asset 2. A one-page allowed use guide with examples. Not legal language, operational examples. Asset 3. A 10-minute training with scenario prompts. People learn policy by examples, not abstractions. Asset 4. A question channel. Slack, Teams, office hours, whatever your organization already uses. No channel means no feedback loop. Asset 5. A weekly metrics view. One adoption signal and one risk signal. Adoption signal can be % of relevant teams trained and using approved tools. Risk signal can be exception volume plus repeat violation rate. You do not need a giant dashboard, you need a reliable one. Now let us tie back directly to this week's news. From the model release story, your action is to add a model change checkpoint into policy operations. From the infrastructure cost story, your action is to add infrastructure transparency and cost volatility language into procurement controls. That is how you prevent headlines from turning into noise. You are converting external change into internal execution. Now I want to give you a concrete Monday plan. 4 blocks. Block 1. Policy update in 60 minutes. Open your allowed use standard and add a section called Model Change Trigger, right when reevaluation is mandatory. For example, major model version changes, new tool feature classes, and new data integrations. Block 2. Procurement update in 60 minutes. Add 3 infrastructure questions to your AI vendor intake form: cost volatility, transparency commitments, and infrastructure impact disclosures. Block 3. Manager enablement in 30 minutes. Give managers one script: what is allowed now, what is restricted now, where to ask questions, and who approves exceptions. Block 4. Risk review in 30 minutes. Pick one active AI workflow, run a quick drift check, compare documented policy versus actual behavior, capture one gap and one fix by end of week. This is not heavy, this is deliberate, and it is repeatable. If you run this weekly, your policy will stay aligned with reality instead of lagging 6 months behind. A final note on uncertainty. We do not need to pretend we know exactly where every vendor roadmap lands, but we do need to stop pretending uncertainty is a reason to wait. When the news cycle moves, your policy system should absorb change without chaos. That is the operating standard. If you are listening as an executive, your move is to enforce this as a management rhythm. If you are in security or compliance, your move is to make controls lightweight and measurable. If you are on the front line, your move is to escalate unclear cases early so the standard improves. And if your team is still saying we should do something with AI without assigning ownership, start there. No owner, no outcome. That is episode 2, AI Policy Basics for Operators, anchored to what changed this week
and what to do next.
If this was useful, share it with one person who is currently writing AI policy in a vacuum. I am Michael Hanna Boutros Meyering. This is AI Change Desk. Context, impact, action. This is AI Change Desk. See you next time.